Halito, and welcome to Native ChocTalk, a podcast by natives for all. Here we're keeping our Native ancestors' stories and history alive while also sharing with you our Native cultures, traditions, and more. I'm Rachel Youngman, a Choctaw originally from Anadarko, Oklahoma. I hope you'll enjoy this journey with me as we learn from our Native American guests. And stay tuned for the end of each episode where we'll talk about some great ways to support Native causes and or Native-owned businesses. Let's get started. But first, a word from our sponsor.
Potential is everywhere in the Choctaw people. It's in our schools and students. It's in our small businesses and entrepreneurs. Potential is in our lifestyle and health. It's in our culture and heritage. Passion and commitment is in our blood. Ingenuity and economy are a tradition. And the Choctaw Foundation was founded for this potential. To cultivate minds and hearts, to stimulate ideas and passions, to extend lives and improve health through education, and to preserve and promote the power of our past. The Choctaw Foundation, meeting the potential of the Choctaw people.
In part one of Stickball, Little Brother of War, I spoke with stickball expert Brenner Billy, who told us about the art of playing stickball and of making stickball sticks. And now, today in part two, I'm super excited to visit with two friends of mine, Mark Williams, outstanding Choctaw filmmaker, and Chalena Marcus, an incredible stickball player who will talk about her viewpoint of playing this historical and culturally important Native American game. So I'll start off here with my conversation with Mark. Halito, Mark, thanks for visiting with me today.
Alito, thank you for having me.
No problem. And you've stayed super busy, so I really appreciate your time. Now, you do some impressive and crucial work in our Native American communities. For my listeners, Mark is an award-winning Choctaw filmmaker from Shawnee, Oklahoma. And one thing I really appreciate about Mark is he's a natural talent. He's self-taught. He's never been to film school, and he practiced on his friends and family before his career in documentary filmmaking even took off. So, Mark, tell us a little bit more. I know you have some interesting stories about, getting kickstarted out there in the world of filmmaking.
Yeah, it's I've been doing it a long time, and it hasn't been easy. It hasn't always been easy. It's still not easy, but just getting started was a journey. As you said, never been to film school, so I just jumped right in, started making short stories, and trying to talk my friends and family into being in my movies. And we had a garage sale just to even get some equipment to record with. I think my mom, we even had a Indian taco sale just to kind of get props and wardrobe and that kind of stuff. And so,
Really?
yeah,
Oh, when there's
it was,
will,
I
there's a
mean,
way, man.
yeah. And the very first one I did was a big budget of $200. That's how much we
Woo!
raised.
Really?
That's how much we raised for it, and we made this little
Amazing.
film. We was proud of it, but it was my first time trying to make a film, and it actually found its way into a film festival somehow, and it got great reactions, great feedback. Now the quality wasn't as great because we're just using equipment that $200 can buy, but
Yeah.
but the story was there, and I think the audience appreciated it and just enjoyed it, and so sitting back there watching them react. And it was a horror film. Let me throw that out there. And so watching the audience jump and react and close their eyes and scream and all that from a script that something I came up with in my head, something that we put out on the screen for $200. That's when I kind of fell in love with filmmaking and storytelling, and was thinking, you know, what can I do with a bigger budget, with a bigger project? And so from
Mhm.
there, just started making more films, and just it's still coming out of my pocket every time. But hey, when you love what you're doing, it's do what you got to do, right?
Absolutely. I feel you there too. And there is a passion that comes with the things that you and I do, you on a grander scale. But I love that it was only $200. And it really does prove to all of us that if you want to do something, you will make a way. You will have that Indian taco sale. You will do what it takes. Speaking of Indian tacos, don't you, isn't there some funny story in there about fry bread, some comics that you used to do?
Well, way before filmmaking, I guess. So in high school, I used to draw comics kind of out of boredom, kind of just because I just wanted to do something kind of funny, I guess. And so I started writing these little comic books about this superhero that he was a clumsy superhero, but he would always win at the end. He'd always get the girl, that kind of thing. And I remember selling the comics to my friends for like a quarter a piece.
Nice. And they bought them? I mean,
And they
hey,
bought them
that's
just because they figured I need pop money or something. I don't know. And so they bought them. But it wasn't very good drawing. But it really did help in later film work. If you're familiar with, or maybe your audience is familiar with storyboards, it looks like a comic book because you have frames, frame by frame of every shot, every scene, and it's kind of like a comic book. And so it kind of helped me in the
oh,
later part of my life as far as trying to storyboard, seeing the shots in my head and putting it down on paper before we even pick up a camera. So yeah, we incorporated that into some of my filmmaking. The taco sales, Indian taco sales, all that fry bread. I incorporated into one of my early films. I made a children's comedy called The Adventures of Josie the Frybread Kid, and that kind of came from my comic book days too, because it was about a kid who thought he was a superhero by eating his grandma's fry bread, and he would, in a funny way, in a clumsy, comical way, would always, win. He would always beat the school bully, and so all those kind of things I did early on kind of incorporated into my later parts of filmmaking, and yeah, so that's kind of how it started, and still use those things and still use those ideas to this day.
I just want you to know, I believe, Mark, I believe in the fry bread. I believe it will make you a superhero. So
Yeah,
you
especially your grandma's fry bread. Yeah,
try it. It's full of superpowers. So do you still have those fry bread comics today?
I need to go back to my mom. Your moms, they always keep
Yeah.
everything, and so I'll have to dig in some closets. She's probably kept them somewhere.
If you
Uh,
find them at your mama's house, I hope that you will share them with us so we can see them. I'm dying to see them. And in fact, I was almost thinking, man, we need to get that out there and start selling that stuff. That'd be fun.
Funny is I can still draw that character. I remember what he looks like. I can still draw him.
I say bring him back
Bring him back. Yeah,
in your spare time that you don't have.
I don't have exactly. So that film, the first one we made, $200 is what it cost to make, and it somehow made its way into this film festival. Never been to a film festival before. Didn't really know what it was really, but I said, yeah. It was in Tulsa. It was the Red Fork Native American Film Festival, and I went again, not knowing what to expect. I walk into the theater, and it was standing room only, and not for me, but for the film right before mine. It was a movie called The Brave, and it was produced, written, and directed by Johnny Depp,
Oh,
and starring Johnny Depp and Marlon Brando. And in this movie, now I don't know if it ever got distribution, so I don't know if it's been released or if you can find it, but I'm sure you can find, on his IMDb page or something. But
mhm.
Johnny Depp plays a Native American father to this Native American family. He makes this huge sacrifice so his family can survive. And so everybody kind of came to see that movie. So, with Johnny Depp and Marlon Brando attached, there's going to be millions and millions of dollars put into that film, right?
Mhm.
Guess whose movie was playing right after his was my $200 horror film. I'm
But
like,
how cool is that? You've got a captive audience. They're still there. And
yeah,
guess
so
what?
they
I'm
was
bringing my $200
right
show.
there.
That's
And so,
awesome.
at that point, I was thinking, what did I get myself into? Shouldn't have done this.
I
They're
have to
gonna laugh at
follow
it.
Johnny Depp.
'Cause,
Yeah.
yeah, let's follow Johnny Depp and this high production value. It's a real film compared to mine where I had a little
Mm.
camcorder and And so I was really kind of feeling nervous and anxious. So luckily they didn't introduce me because nobody knew me at that point. They just went right into my movie. And
Wow.
so I sat way in the back, kind of hiding and nervous. But like I said, halfway into it, it's a horror film. And so they started, jumping and screaming and looking away, closing their eyes. And yeah, I was thinking, wow, this little $200 movie that we made is getting the exact reactions I was wanting to get.
That's
Everything I hoped
amazing.
for, they're doing it. And at that point, I was hooked. I was like, this is what I want to do for a living.
You definitely had it running through your veins at that point. It's so exciting. And by the way, while I was sitting here looking it up too, The Brave, you can get it on Amazon for $18, but it's kind of interesting. But now his was $5 million budget, and you did really well. I've heard of your film, but I haven't heard of his. So just saying.
Yeah, yeah, $5 million compared to 200, and mine was, I forgot what mine was called. The Dare. My brother was in it, my wife at the time. We shot it, I think, in like 2 days, and so yeah.
That's amazing. I
But
love it. And you got all this reaction from
oh
from
yeah,
the audience. What did they do afterwards? Did they clap, or what do you do at a
yeah,
film
they
festival?
clapped, and again, nobody knew who I was at that point. That was my very first film festival, so they didn't say, and the filmmaker is here with us. They just kind of went on to the next film. But that was enough for me. Just hearing them clap and
Mhm.
really enjoy themselves, and that's what I like about horror films. Because whenever you go with a friend and you watch these movies, there's an interaction that you get. When something scares you, you jump for a second, and then
Yeah,
you kind of look at your friend. You be like, "You got scared? No, you got scared." And so it's a fun. It's for a couple hours. You kind of get lost in these stories and have fun with it and be entertained. And so I think my
definitely.
film
And
was like, I
I'm a,
think that first one. I think the first one I did was like a little less than 20 minutes, and so yeah, for those 20 minutes, I think they were entertaining.
that's so much fun. My sisters and I, we all love horror and suspense and thriller movies. So I know a lot of females don't like that stuff, but I absolutely love it. And so, how do we get our hands on that and The Dare, and so I can show my sisters?
Oh man, I would have to find it. It's probably on a DVD somewhere here in my house. I mean,
It's got some cobwebs on it. It's time to
yeah,
dust it
yeah.
off, Mark. Bring it out. We want to see it.
It's just collecting dust somewhere. That was my very first one. That was in 2006 or 2007, and then I just started making short films after that, and each one just a little bit bigger, a little bit better, and just trying to challenge myself and learn more things.
Oh, for sure. I mean, you definitely came out of the gate swinging. Then, after two award winning feature films, you went on to Native American sports documentaries, which of course won multiple awards. There's Beans, about a young Native golfer, followed by boxing documentary Shiloh and Knife Chief. Then Warrior Coach, about a small school's basketball program in Oklahoma. That one's great too. For our listeners, Mark also works as a freelancer on mainstream projects and making cultural films for tribal companies, citizens, and nations. His first feature-length documentary, Tushka Nowat Aya, covered Choctaw Stickball and won Best Film in 2018 at the Native Visions Film Festival in Arizona. It's so good, by the way. Loved it. He currently works in digital media for the Seminole Nation, and his latest film with the Choctaw Nation, Ikayana Lachi, I Will Remember, made its film festival run and is currently in selection to the American Indian Film Festival. And Mark is not done. He's researching more cultural projects to give the Native people an authentic voice by telling their own stories. Just one of the many reasons I have mad respect for you, Mark. We certainly share the same goal and vision. So kudos to you. And to my listeners, go check out those documentaries, y'all. They are well worth your time. So, Mark, which of these that I mentioned above are some of your favorites?
Oh man, that's a hard question. They all have something. They all kind of hold something special. I mean, Beans was my very first one as far as a sports documentary goes. That was my very first stab at a sports documentary, and she's still doing great things. So it's just cool to see her kind of still playing golf and still winning tournaments. And Shiloh, it's actually on Amazon Prime if people want to watch that.
Okay.
She's doing great things. She was a Nike and Seven ambassador. I think she still might be. So you can definitely kind of follow her career. Knife Chief is actually became a good buddy of mine since we made this documentary about him. he lives here locally here in Oklahoma. Still chasing that dream. He's still trying to become a boxing champion, still doing great things.
It's great.
Same thing with the Warrior Coach. I'm a huge basketball fan, so that one, I think Warrior Coach might be kind of one of my favorites, only because of basketball. Um, Grew up playing basketball, watching it, and it's something that I just kind of relate to. And I think a lot of native kids relate to, and so about a youth team and the message behind it about him, trying to shape these young boys into young men. And so I think the message behind Warrior Coach is really good. So that's one of my favorites as well.
I can tell that there's a lot of passion around what you do, and about each one of these is kind of your baby. And
Yeah, yeah. Well, I
yeah.
mean, the way I kind of approach them, or the way I kind of look at it, is a big picture. You look at Shiloh. She was a champion, a boxing champion at one point. By the time I came on board, same thing with Knife Chief. Warrior Coach was doing great things. Well, they have a good following on social media. People look up to Knife Chief, Dennis Knife Chief. People look up to Shiloh LeBeau, and I see the comments on Facebook. I want to be like you. I want to do this. I want to do that. And they see these native athletes holding up belts and titles, which is great. But what they don't see is what it took to get there. How many times they failed, how many times they maybe wanted to give up, all the obstacles, life challenges. And so I kind of wanted to make these documentaries to kind of show that journey, that they can relate to these people. With Knife Chief, for example, he overcame some addictions. He made some wrong decisions in his life that almost cost him. And a lot of native kids in these communities can relate to something like that. They may be going down that same path. And so it's never too late to get out of that, to make better decisions. So I kind of want to show these athletes on their journey, what it took to get there, and maybe who knows, maybe change some lives. You never know. And so that's kind of what the purpose of making those films. And plus, they're great people. I think their story needs to be on a higher platform. And so I
Totally.
was just kind of glad to be a part of those.
For sure. And do you think you'll ever go back and do like a part 2 on their lives a few years later?
Definitely. We always kind of stay in contact, and we talked about doing that. Shiloh, she just won a huge tournament. I forgot what the title was, but it was a nationally ranked tournament, so she's doing really well. Beans is still she's in high school now. She was I think she was 10 at the time when we made this one. Young, she was very young, but
Very
she was,
young. Oh my
yeah,
gosh.
and she was just raw, but she was beating everybody. And now she's in high school, and she's getting offers from different colleges all over the country. And then just a side note, Beans is also Wyatt Factor's niece.
Oh my gosh. Okay. So a mutual friend of ours, it's his niece. That's crazy.
Yeah, yeah.
Wow. Small world.
And so
Wow.
yeah, I've always kind of thought about going back, just kind of following up with them, and
Well, now you are a fellow Choctaw. So tell me more about you and your family's background. Are there any other like filmmakers in your family? Like, where'd you get this enormous talent, by the way?
I think storytelling is from my dad. And I think naturally, I think Native Americans, natives we're natural storytellers. It's something
True.
that's always kind of been a part of us. Either, some were more gifted than others, but I think the love of storytelling have always kind of been with us. I remember before we go to bed, we'd ask him to tell a story, and he would just at the top of his head come up with something, and it was always just great stuff. I would always I remember thinking you had to have wrote that, because how he tied everything in,
Yeah.
it all kind of came together. It had a great beginning, great middle, and great end. You had to written that somewhere, but it was just natural for him. He came from Mississippi. He's a full blood Mississippi Choctaw. Grew up in Standing Pine on the Standing Pine Reservation, and my mom grew up in Oklahoma. She's full blood Oklahoma Choctaw. Grew up in Bennington, Oklahoma, which is not too far from Durant, where I think most of your listeners know where Durant is, and some people know where Bennington is. So yeah, they met in high school, you know, and
Yeah.
so yeah, so
Okay.
like a lot of kids, they
Yeah,
met
it's like the place that
met,
brings all these
met up at
couples
Haskell.
together.
Yeah,
Yeah. That's great. And Haskell's in Kansas, right?
right. Lawrence,
Yeah.
Kansas, right next to Kansas University. Shiloh, who the film is about, that we filmed it over in Kansas, in Haskell, and so yeah, they met in Haskell, and knocked out 5 kids. I was the second one. And,
Ah, the middle child. Not the middle of the
all
middle, but close to the middle.
yeah, close to the middle. We're all enrolled in Mississippi, with the Mississippi band.
And why is that? Is it because, I mean, I would think that normally it goes with the mother's line, but it went with your dad's line, huh?
Yeah, I just remember at the time, well, they enrolled us when we were younger. This was so in the 80s. Um, they both weren't prosperous as they are today, and I remember Mississippi band started getting. They got a casino first. And they started making some money. They started getting some businesses. The chief at the time was Philip Martin. So I think
Mm-hmm.
there were probably just better programs at the time for the Mississippi band.
Yeah,
And so I guess they just kind of felt like it was more reasons to be enrolled over there.
for
And
sure. For sure.
well,
Go ahead.
also when I was young too, we lived in Mississippi too.
Oh, you
So,
did? Okay.
yeah, we lived right outside Pearl
Mm-hmm.
River Reservation. So we went to Choctaw Central,
Mm-hmm.
and so
Okay.
while living over there, they just enrolled us over there.
Gotcha. Now, are there any like friendly rivalries between your mom and dad, Mississippi versus Oklahoma?
No, not really. I think maybe when they first started dating, I'm sure there was. We've heard stories of more kind of when it came to sports, playing basketball, that kind of stuff. My dad's a
Yeah.
trash, and so I'm sure stuff like that probably came up, and I'm sure some arguments probably came out of it. And
Oh,
so,
I'm sure. I'm
yeah.
sure. Did they play stickball or do they play stickball?
No, my mom didn't. I think my dad probably did it at a younger age. I remember whenever we was living in Mississippi, I remember being around stickball, and it was in second grade is when I moved to Oklahoma. And at that time in the early 80s, stickball was not really a big deal around here in Oklahoma
True.
as it is now.
True.
They would play, during Labor Day festival, at Tuskahoma. Actually, Brenner Billy, his family was a big part of kind of keeping it alive, along with social dancing and stuff. So there was demonstrations being done, but it was nothing on a scale of as it is today. So growing up, it really wasn't around us, and I didn't really play it or really wasn't familiar with it until I got later and older, and
Mhm.
started making films.
Okay. And so now your dad is a fluent speaker. Is your mom as well?
Mom is she can speak it, she can conversate.
Hmm.
I'll put it that way. So I wouldn't say she's fluent, but she can understand. She can keep along with the conversation.
Yeah.
One of the things I've noticed with Mississippi speakers are they're a lot faster.
Mm.
Um, there's almost even some slang to it because they speak it so well.
Yeah.
And so it's sometimes harder for Oklahoma speakers to maybe keep up or maybe kind of understand what they're saying.
Hmm.
So mom can understand a conversation, but sometimes she'll just maybe reply in English.
Yeah.
Yeah, but she knows Choctaw.
And how about you? Did you grow up speaking the language?
Whenever I was younger, living in Mississippi, I was told we could. I really don't remember a whole lot. I was speaking it at home, really, but to my cousins, they said we could. Because down there, especially in the 80s, it was so common that at that time, you pretty much spoke Choctaw first, English second.
Hmm. Yeah.
And it's still heavy down there. But when we moved to Oklahoma in Bennington, there was just only a couple of other Choctaw families in the area, and there really wasn't a need for it, or it just wasn't as prevalent as it was in Mississippi. So we kind of just didn't speak it, and we kind of just forgot over the years. And
Hmm.
to this day, I remember seeing my dad in an interview one time, and I don't know if he knows that I saw this, but he was talking about that move, that he doesn't regret a lot of things, but one of the things he does regret is he didn't keep us speaking the language after we moved
Oh,
here. So now, it's one of those things, whenever you get older, you start to reflect on things. And I realize now how important language is to us, and it's the identity of our people. And so going through the journey of trying to learn it or relearn it, basically. I had a kid recently. Well, recently, 5 years ago, I had a kid. And
That's pretty recent.
yeah, pretty recent. To me, I guess it's recent. I want to teach him things. One of the things I want to teach him is the language. So for me to teach him, I have to know it. And
True.
so I'm at the part where I'm trying to relearn it myself. And, you know, not to get off on, our subject here too much, but, language is, like I said, it's our identity. I think it's right there up par with stickball.
Hmm.
Stickball and our language, these are in our songs, these are a big part of who we are. And to be a fluent speaker, you have to be around the language pretty much 24/7.
True.
And
True.
I have to, as sad as it is, I have to come to grips with I'm never going to be a fluent speaker. I can speak it, I can get it, I can gain a lot of knowledge and be able to conversate with people and with elders and be, very, as far as just speaking with them, I can do that. But as far as fluent, after just kind of speaking to some teachers, they said it's you have to basically be around it all the time to be
I do
fluent.
agree with that. So I'm on this journey with you too. I've been trying to learn and I do the online classes, but it's weird because I had been in Oklahoma for a while recently and I was around a lot more people that were speaking it. And so they were trying to speak it to me and I was trying to understand. I couldn't quite speak much of it back, but man, it made a big difference over a few days. But again, if you're not around it all the time, it kind of just starts fading away.
Mhm.
And then there's just life. You and I are both busy and it's really hard to make time for these important things. But maybe, hey, maybe when we're retired someday, we can learn how to speak it. But well, thanks for sharing that about your family. It's kind of cool to get to know them a little bit. And you've made some sports films about, as we mentioned earlier, golf and basketball and boxing. So tell us how you got into the films about stickball.
Stickball came about with Choctaw Nation. They approached me about a project they were working on. At that point, I had a couple of films with them, cultural films. I think we did one about social dancing and basket weaving and weapon making. The other ones I did were like short films, 12-minute, 15 minutes, but they wanted to do like a feature length film about stickball. And so they just asked me, what do you have in mind? What do you want to do? And so I said, hey, well, since we're gonna make it a feature length film, let's follow them for a while. Let's kind of show what it really takes to put a team out there to compete for the
Love
World
it.
Series. And I said, let me this was back in September when we started, September 2017. I remember asking, I said, when do you have a deadline for this? And they said, no, not really. I said, well, why don't let me follow them for a whole year. Let me get to know these players. Let me go into their homes. Let me go to all the practices, tournaments, basically gearing them what it takes for them to get prepared for the World Series, which is a big deal
Hmm.
in July of next year. And they loved it and said, yeah, go for it. And so at that time, I knew a little bit about stickball. You can YouTube stickball and YouTube talk about stickball and there's stuff on there. But I wanted to do something. I want to go beyond those action shots. I want to go beyond the field. Like I said, go into the homes and get to know the players, the sacrifices they make to make it to practices. And so I'm kind of get the human side, these human interest stories,
Yeah.
what it takes to get the team, how hard is it to coach them, and so get to know the culture of Tushkahoma stickball. And so that's how it developed. And the team was very open. They were open for interviews and they welcomed me in, let me get literally in the huddle. So
Wow.
I'm in there with them and hearing all the instructions and the strategies and everything. So it was really cool to get on that side of the field and show that it's not just people running around with sticks and a ball. That there's actually strategies behind it. There's planning and everything. It was just a great introduction for me into the game of stickball,
Hmm.
to the point where I started falling in love with it myself.
Oh, for sure. And emotion behind it too, because as Brenner and I talked about earlier, the idea of, there's the drums playing that
Mhm.
means something. And then there's the getting excited for the game and that means something. And then sometimes when I talk to stickball players, they're talking about the idea that our ancestors for centuries played this game and it was for different reasons back then, but here we're still honoring them by continuing to play this game. And even when I'm talking about it right now, I get goosebumps. So what's it like when you're out there, you said you're kind of in the huddle, you're in different parts of the field. What's it like to observe a game?
Exciting. It gets me hyped up. I want to play. So I grew up playing, mostly basketball, but just loving sports. So I'm
Hmm.
a competitor, still am. And so I just love competition, especially getting to know the players. And I saw their sacrifice and their hard work, and they gave it their all. And going into the World Series, they know they're underdogs. They know Mississippi players, they can play. Those
Hmm.
teams are good.
Hmm.
But they go into with, we're a family. We're going to give it all we got. Let's play for each other. And so that hypes me up.
Yeah.
That they walk onto the field. It's nighttime. They're under lights. Crowd is loud. You get the drum beat going. So it's literally the heartbeat of the game, but you can feel your heart racing right with it.
Hmm.
And there was a big part of me that wanted to put the camera down and get out there with them and
Yeah.
just and go to battle with them.
Just throw that camera and get on
Yeah,
out there.
throw the camera down. So let me jump out there with them. But then I
Yeah.
remember if I put
It's
my camera down,
awesome.
I won't get paid. So
Right.
I'll keep my
There's
camera
that.
for now. And then I'll uh I'll play the next
If
game.
you could put it
So,
like on a post or something so you can record yourself. I don't know. Would that count?
yeah, but yeah. So just being down there and walking in with them, it does feel like you're walking in a battle. You're hitting the sticks. You're about to go to war with this other team,
Hmm.
and for community, for your family, for your pride, and you just want to go all out and give it your all. And I can see how there was so much emotion when they play then and now.
Hmm.
Yeah, I mean, it's just something else. It's one of the things you kind of have to be there, be on the field with them.
Yeah. So obviously you're filming a very rough game. And as Brenner and I talked about in part one, bones are broken, teeth are knocked out. So I can imagine you get kind of knocked around out there, I would assume. Obviously getting in the way on occasion by accident or whatever, but describe in your own words what you're seeing through the camera and how brutal does this game actually get?
That's one of the things that's kind of that I love with storytelling, with camera work is, I'm able to zoom in and get these facial expressions, and you see during the scrums, or what they call huddles or scrums, kind of what goes on that you can't see from the audience. From the if you ever watch a World Series stickball game, they have a YouTube link that you can watch it, but it's from afar off. You
Yeah.
can honestly kind of like the fast action, but to really get in there, the hits that they take with the sticks to the face, and just when they get up and there's broken hands, and
Oh my
you can
God.
hear the bones just hitting, and
Oh.
but they get back up, and it's just able to capture it. That's what I try to do with the camera, is capture not really just only the action, but just the spirit of the game. A lot of times I'll turn away from the action. You might think, wait, why would you do that? There's so much emotion going on that sideline as well,
Hmm.
with the coaches, with the people that's audiences. That's their family, that's their community, and they're cheering loud, and they're right behind them, and you can see in their faces as well. So as much as the faces you want to see on the field, it's happening on the sideline as well. So I'm telling the story from the sideline as well. You see the little kids, they're seeing their dad on the field. You
Oh,
know,
yeah.
they're seeing their mom out there just giving it their all. And so
Love that.
they just get behind them, and they want to be out there with them, and they're proud of their mom and dad. And so I'm capturing their stories with their facial expressions, just going back and forth. That's a part of storytelling with camera work, is anybody can just point the camera and just try to get action, but to get the spirit of Choctaw stickball, you got to capture the whole arena, the whole field, and what's going on the sideline as well. So that's what I try to do.
Yeah, and that's what I love about your documentaries. You've really gone beyond just those rules of the game and all that. You've like conveyed what stickball means to the players and, to their tribes. So, can you describe a little more about that human side of the game and what it means to these players? We talked a little bit earlier about, centuries ago,
Yeah.
their ancestors were playing basically to settle disputes and that kind of thing. What would you add to that?
I think community pride comes a big part of it into it. Leading up to the World Series of Stickball, with social media, you can see a lot of trash talking that kind of leads up into it. But it's about their community. My team is going to do this, and we beat y'all last time, and it's serious business down there. And they know what it means to not only their community, but this is, like I said, this is the game of their ancestors. I think a very good example is this past year, because last year they didn't have the World Series because of
Mhm.
COVID. The first time it's been not played in I don't know how many years.
Wow.
I don't think they've ever not played it really. And so stickball was pretty much shut down last year, and everybody wanted to get back out there, just like with just with like society in the world. Everybody wanted to kind of get back to some kind of normalcy.
Mhm.
Well, normalcy in Mississippi is stickball. And so it meant so much to get back out there and to hear that drum again on Friday night. You hear that drum. There was just so much emotion that basically it's back. And they always do a tribute, even before COVID hit. They would always do a tribute to fallen warriors, people that's passed on. Well, with this past year, there was a lot of fallen warriors.
Oh
A lot
man.
of our people's passed on. And so a lot of these players are playing for their parents, for their grandmas and grandpas who's passed on. There's a lot of them. And
Wow.
so there was even that much more at stake. I want to win this game. I want to win this title for my parents. I want to win it for my grandma who passed on from COVID. Even friends, even young people. There was a player from Bochito who scored a point, and normally when I'm filming these games, as soon as a score is made, there's a jump ball in the middle of the field in like 2 seconds because it's nonstop.
Mhm.
But usually when there's a score, I turn my camera back to the middle of the field and get more action, get the jump ball. But after that score was made, I don't know what it was. For some reason, something told me to stay on that player.
Hmm.
And so after he scored, I didn't go back to the middle of the field. The camera, I found him and I just followed him and he started walking off the field. And I just kind of kept watching of the camera, wondering what he's doing. I was trying to get in position to see what he was doing. And then I saw him starting to break down. He started getting emotional. And he,
Hmm.
he looked to his team like, subs and, bring someone in for me. I can't play. And he got down to his knees and he started crying. And I knew at that point this was something that he was playing for somebody. So I asked him after the game, and they won the championship. They won the championship that night. And I asked him the next day. I said, "Hey, I have this video of you. That score that you made, was it for somebody?" And he told me who he was playing for. And I said, "It's okay if I share this clip. I mean, this is a great clip, and this kind of sums up the emotion that's about Choctaw stickball." And he said, "Yeah." And so we shared it. And it went. It was shared on how many times on Facebook. Everybody loved it, and kind of summed
Wow.
up kind of summed up that this is more than just a game. Normally
Exactly.
you score a point in a championship game, you're going to celebrate. Here, he needed a moment, kind of step away and just kind of be with his friend for a moment.
Mhm.
So
Wow.
he was playing for him.
Amazing.
So while I was down there in Mississippi, the reason I was down there is I'm actually working on my next documentary about the Standing Pine women's team down there
Ah.
in
Oh, I can't wait to see that.
River Ohoyo. So we filmed them. They're a small community, one of the smallest ones, and they came out of nowhere and they beat the three-time defending champs while we was out there. And so we was trying to get their journey. And as everyone probably knows who's seen this, unfortunately they didn't win the title, but I was still able to get there and to capture basically the same thing, the hard work they put in, the practices they put in. But we also interviewed a lot of the players along the way. And one of the things we talked about kind of to reiterate your point about the human side of it is the connection they have to sticks.
Mm.
And these sticks are a part of them. It's like an extension of who they are. And they talked about what the sticks mean to them. And sometimes when the sticks break in games, how it felt like they were losing a family member.
Oh,
Um,
right,
they
right.
Some of them cried when they broke their sticks.
Wow.
Um, so it's something that, it's not just a game where everybody's running around not knowing what they're doing. It's something that means a lot to them. Winning means a lot to them because it's for the community, and the sticks that they play with. It was probably made by someone special to them, or it's
Yeah.
so there's so much connection they have with them that I'm trying to capture with these interviews and with these films.
And you're definitely doing a great job of that. So thanks for bringing stickball to life for many who may not have even known what stickball is or that the sport is still around. And now please tell us more about how people can see your award-winning documentaries.
I have a couple of Facebook pages. You can check out most of my work, Native Warrior Productions and Digital Feather Media. Some of the documentaries, you can find them on both, actually. Amazon Prime, you can find Shiloh. Some of the paranormal documentaries I've done is also on Amazon Prime. And as I mentioned before, Violet. I have 2 YouTube channels, Native Warrior Productions and Digital Feather Media. The documentary about the Trail of Tears, Ekiana Lachi, will be shown at the Choctaw Cultural Center in Durant pretty much every day. I don't know the exact schedule, but you can probably look at the website or look at their Facebook page, and they should have the showing, the screen schedule, along with my stickball film as well. Kashka Noat Aya is also shown at the Choctaw Cultural Center.
Perfect. Thank you. I'm now about to talk to my next guest, so don't go anywhere, y'all. But before we switch gears, I'd like to encourage you listeners to go check out Digital Feather Media and on all the major social media outlets, as Mark was telling us. And I'll be sure to post more information on my Native ChocTalk Facebook page and website. Please share with your coworkers, your mom, your dad, complete strangers. The information Mark is producing is crucial to our heritage and to our people. And it's just interesting and fun to watch too. So please help us keep it going. Chalena is coming up next. So Mark, yakoki for your time and expertise.
Okay, thank you again for having me. I appreciate it.
Thanks so much. I love the power of social media when it's used in the right ways to help others and to learn. My family and I were taking stickball lessons from a friend I knew from Facebook who's been playing the game for a long time, but we wanted our own stickball sticks. So a few years back, he introduced me to my next guest, Chalena Marcus, who is an incredible stickball player. And I was told she could help me get the perfect pair of sticks. And from there, Chalena and I hit it off and we've been friends ever since. So Chalena, I'm so excited to get to do this with you today. Yakoki for being here.
Thank you for having me. And Halito. Hello to all the cousins out there.
So how lucky are we that we got to meet the way we did? So when I reached out to you, I asked if you could hook me up with a few pairs of kapucha, the Choctaw name for stickball sticks. And I was floored by just how far out of your way you went to help me out. And at the time you were living in Mississippi and you went to a pawn shop to do some searching. And I was just like, oh, that's so nice. And you were like, I'm still looking. I have to find the right pair. And so anyway, so what was this pawn shop that you went to in Mississippi?
It was called Beams, and it's in Philadelphia, Mississippi. But generally, you can go to like any pawn shop in Philadelphia and Mississippi, and they have them in all the pawn shops.
Well, and that's just something I did not grow up being able to see in Oklahoma. I just didn't see sticks in a pawn shop ever. And I think my sister had bought a small pair, a child's pair at an antique store, but we were shocked to see those. And so anyway, thanks for doing that. It was really cool of you.
Oh, you're welcome.
So obviously buying brand new sticks is extremely expensive and finding someone to make them is definitely a challenge. So my family and I, we were not exactly pro level. We're still not. In fact, we're really bad at it, but we just needed decent sticks so that we could, just continue learning. So what did you look for when you were selecting the sticks? I've always wondered.
Well, for one, I was making sure that the sticks were strong. They weren't crooked for the right-handed people or the left-handed people. So a lot of that plays into, like how you're going to play. I mean, that affects your performance as well. So that's what I was looking for. And, like just strong and sturdy sticks and not just something that was maybe cracked or,
Mhm.
you know, because sometimes the sticks do get cracked during the game. So, and
I
then a
bet.
lot of times, you know, of course, you know, those basically aren't any good anymore. So no cracks, just strong wood on the stick there.
So for your sticks, do you go to the pawn shop or do you have them specially made by someone you know?
I bought a couple from the pawn shop that were real good. A lot of the families that have a lot of sticks, if they need to do a trade for like whatever the case may be, it can go from getting fish bait to go fishing or anything like that. You know, sometimes they would just go ahead and trade or pawn their sticks.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's like if you got 2 or 3 pairs that you own for yourself, and then, you know, like, I don't really need these anymore, or I could use another pair, you know. And so I think that's how that winds up there. But as far as I go, like, I bought some from the pawn shop, and then, like I said, some from people who made them, or I would request it and have it made.
Yeah. Makes sense, especially during practices or do you kind of get
Mhm.
used to the feel of your sticks? So you're like, oh shoot, I really need my lucky pair of sticks for this game.
Yes, every player has like their favorite stick. For some reason, we don't have them that day, like rushing from work to the game or to the stickball practices. Then, yeah, I mean, sometimes we might borrow some. And well, for me, that's how it is. I have to adjust to it, like learn the sticks all over again. That's how it is for me. But you got some out there that will just pick it up and it's nothing to them. But for me, I have my favorite pairs and it affects my games.
I think I would too. I mean, and hey, if you lose, you can be like, it was the sticks. I didn't have my
Yeah.
normal sticks.
I didn't have my sticks. I didn't have
Right.
my yeah.
So what does a new pair of good sticks typically run?
Right now, I've seen the highest, I think, is like $75.
Okay. I wonder if they're priced differently in Oklahoma versus Mississippi since there's less of them made in Oklahoma or
Oh, I bet. I don't even know, but it used to start off, from what I remember, it used to start off around like $25, $30, but over the years, gradually it increased up to 75.
wow. And is that for a new pair or a
Yeah, a
pair?
new pair.
Wow. That's actually, I feel like that's cheaper than some that I've seen, but I'd have
Hmm.
to double check. Cause again, I've only had a used pair and I remember how much those were. So all right.
Yeah.
So from there, you sent me the sticks and they were exactly what we were looking for. And I truly appreciated that. So what I also love is that the sticks came from Mississippi, the primary origin of where our Choctaw people came from. So,
Yeah.
and of course, for our listeners, I'm Oklahoma Choctaw and you're Mississippi Choctaw. Tell me
Hmm.
more about where you grew up. I picture it in my head, but I want to hear from you. What was it like growing up there and what did it look like, the environment and all that?
I kind of grew up in one of the communities called Bokchito. And so everything seemed more traditional than another community that I resided in Pearl River. I could tell the difference. From Bokchito, it was like, well, growing up from over there, it's like everyone you see is native. I mean, everyone you live, your neighbors and everything like that, they're all natives. Because I lived on the reservation there. Growing up on the reservation in Choctaw, Mississippi, it was modernized. Our house was modernized. Like, we had running water, we had electricity. But given on a Sunday morning or a Saturday afternoon, you could also see our Choctaw elder women outside cooking by the fire in their traditional Choctaw dresses. It was still in the normalcy for us to live our culture or practice our culture. And once a year, we would have the Green Corn Festival and then the Choctaw Indian Fair. But in those times there, that's when you'll see all the Choctaws gather in their traditional clothing, and we would get together and have our traditional dances. We would have our traditional food, and also as well as the beaded jewelry and the basket weaving. It's very humid most of the time, especially during the summer.
Oh, I bet. And then you're playing stickball in the summer, right? Or is it kind of
Oh,
all year
yeah.
round or oh boy.
Well, for us in Mississippi, like the practices begin maybe especially May.
Okay.
And then when it comes to June and getting close to July, oh, those are the hottest days it seems like to be out in
Oof.
practice. And And then there's no shade unless you get on the sideline or go on the
Yeah.
sides. So it can get real extreme heat out there. And
Oh my
like we even
gosh.
had like one of the players pass out from heat, like they got overheated. So then the weather over there, I mean, when it's hot, it's hot.
Oh yeah, definitely. That muggy, humid.
Yes. Yeah.
You'd have to be really in shape to play like y'all do. I can't even imagine. There's a lot of running and aggressiveness and all that.
Hmm.
So my hat is off to you. And you spoke about California. You're living in California now, right? I
Hmm.
remember, when you
Yes.
moved there, but what took you to California?
I just wanted my children to get to know my dad's side of the family. Like, of course, we visit off and on back and forth throughout the years when they were growing up, but I've always wanted to come back to California because I miss the family from that side as well. And I just wanted the children to see how, growing up here too and getting to know their Korea side from over here, like to experience that and to actually live it because for your traditions is like when you actually practice your traditions, you're actually living it, or vice versa. When you live in your traditions, you actually, put that into practice. So it's like over there in Mississippi, they're familiar with the Choctaw stickball. And
Mhm.
then when they come over here to California, my son is now practicing the bird singing. And it's a cultural thing too. It's becoming more popular. So it's like best of both worlds for
Yeah.
us. They get to practice, two different traditions of their, Choctaw, and then you have your Korea side. So
Mhm.
not only that, I wanted them to have more opportunity for school, which California has so many different tribes out here. So it's like bigger. And over the years, they have developed more tribal programs for the schools.
Mhm.
So that was a second reason there.
Makes sense. Kind of some diversity.
Yes, exactly.
How far back generations wise does your stickball playing go? Are you the first in your family to play, or do you have ancestors who also played?
I think I can say I'm the first in my family. Growing up, I just remember hearing and them playing out in the field, but most of my family were working or busy doing other things. I think it was mostly working. So, and then on Sundays, my mother was a religious person. So on Sundays, most of our time was at church and on
Mhm.
Sundays. So after church is, like our rest day or whatever. She's cooking and we're getting ready to eat. So
Yeah.
that's how we spent our Sundays. And then that's what I said and when I was younger, I remember hearing them at the stickball field.
So sounds like the perfect Sunday. At the church that you went to, was it a Choctaw church with Choctaw hymns and all that?
It was a Choctaw church, but it ran by a Pentecostal church. So our pastor was Naholo. He was white,
Mm-hmm.
but they were pretty good to us. So that was our Sundays growing up, going over there to, we would sing the Choctaw hymns and everything like that. And then when he preached, he would preach in English.
Yeah. How nice. I love hearing the Choctaw hymns.
Mhm.
You talked about your mother cooking on Sundays and going to church together and all those things. Those are such, I'm sure, precious memories. And tell us more about your mother and what happened when you were a teenager.
Her name was Nellie Bell. And she was from Bochito, Mississippi. She had passed away when I was 18. She had lupus. But growing up, she was the strong Choctaw mom that, growing up seeing like, she did everything for us. She provided everything for us. And well, she's the one that taught me definitely to stand my ground when it push comes to shove. So she was strong but kind lady. She was
Mhm.
always helpful. She definitely loved kids. So it was like she would take care of what I call like the neighborhood kids. She would, and they all loved her. So
Aw.
it was like, she opened up her home to the little ones and or not just the little ones, but whoever else needed help. I just
Yeah.
remember her being that as well. Like she was always a helpful human being. Like she wanted to help everybody. And she would even take some in a couple times or like the kids when they wanted to come over and play or, and sometimes we would have them for dinner. And
Wow.
so
So it sounds like the apple doesn't fall too far from the tree.
Oh,
When I think about
I
how,
think,
you went and got
yeah,
complete stranger, you went and got those sticks for us. And I was telling my
yeah.
sister, she's going out of her way. It's so nice that she's doing this.
Oh, I
And
was excited. I was excited.
oh, I love it. I mean, so thanks to your mama, Nellie, for teaching you such great
Yeah,
things.
I
And
think I get it. I would say I get that part from her.
totally,
And then
thank you,
she used
Nellie.
to always make friends with other natives. I mean, well, everyone. It didn't matter what color they were or what nationality they were.
Hmm.
If she had something in common with them, like especially like when it came within church, like so she
Mm.
was a big church person. So I had made friends with these people that were nice. They were nice church. They were Pentecostal people too as well, but and they were white people, and that's why I don't see like anyone different from each other. We're all human, just
Hmm.
different walks of life, because we would go to their house and they used to treat us good. They would have us over for dinner, and then with their kids and us, we would go play while they're cooking, or they're
Yeah.
having their little church meeting together. And and then it was time to eat, so we all had fellowship. And then there was another point where when they had guests over for church, it was a Kashada from Texas. He was a preacher, so he came to preach over there. And then that's how my mom and her husband made friends with him and his wife. And then again, we go to Texas to visit them, and they're showing us their reservation and everything. And then
Hmm.
us kids would go swimming and play along all day, and then it was time to eat. So then we would have fellowship with them. So now not only we would have friends from out of state, but we also got to know about some of their Kashada tribe over there in Texas.
Wow. And kind of what you're doing with your kids too.
I guess that's what amuses me a lot of times, is like when I get to know different tribes, it's like I get interested, or just trying to see how different, or how the same that we are.
Right. And celebrating those things. It's a good message for
Mhm.
all of us to hear, putting yourself out there, getting to know new people, different ethnicities, different tribes,
Mhm.
all of those things. And then I love that you said that she taught you to stand your ground, which I assume came really handy for you when you were playing stickball, right?
Yes. Yes, that was very handy, because just seeing my mom, like like she was the sweetest person, but when push came to shove, I saw her stand her ground, and like I was
Yeah.
just like, wow, like okay, this is my mom right here. So
My sweet mom that goes to church and bakes for everybody can
yes, I
also
mean,
stand her
gosh,
ground.
I couldn't believe it. But
That's
after
right.
seeing all that, and I was like, okay, well, like I just know, like, from seeing her being that strong and standing her ground, is like, I know, like, I gotta stand up for
Mhm.
myself as well. Like, I gotta stand up to everything that comes as an adversity. Just
Yeah.
stand up and be strong.
Absolutely. Now, you talked about how you grew up in the reservation area in Mississippi, and there, when people hear reservations, I think they only think one thing, but there are all types of reservations. And you may have heard in Oklahoma, it's been trust land for many years. And now the recognition of sovereignty has come back into play. So there might be the talk of reservations when it comes to jurisdiction taking place here in Oklahoma, a big win for the natives here in Oklahoma. And so again, there's lots of versions of what some may call a reservation. And was there a school there for the younger kids or anything on the reservation, or was it always everybody went to public school?
Well, no, they had the tribal school as well. So it was like tribal school or public school. But today, now we have like a tribal daycares and tribal early head start.
Great.
So,
Yeah,
yeah,
I
back
think
then
I'm
I don't remember having that for the younger kids until like later on in the years. So
well, I would love to come. I've been to Mississippi before, but I've never been to the area that you're talking about. So you and I've talked about trying to get
mhm.
together when you have your festival.
Our Choctaw Indian Fair,
Yeah, yeah. Hope to get over there someday to do that.
that there I can say you'll see a difference when you come on the reservation now. Like you'll just see so many more like Choctaws all in one place. So,
Yeah.
it's just like,
That'll be awesome.
yeah. And then you'll get to see, how far we've came up.
Mm-hmm.
And the reservation, I could say, I mean, what it is now, I mean, you'll see stability, you'll see just like how our family is growing up. You know, we're not living like back in the days, like how people would perceive now, or some people that, you know, just now hear about us and they think like, oh, the reservation, and then, you know, like we're living in the old ways. It's more modern now.
And that's why I wanted you to tell us about that, because I think there are sometimes some preconceived notions, and there sometimes
Hmm.
the typical thing that people think of is true in certain cases, but it's not true in every case. And thanks for sharing that with us. So what's it like playing, you know, you as a woman? I wanted to hear this woman's perspective, because if anyone has any ideas who have never watched stickball, that, oh, there's the women's team and then there's the men's team that's super
Hmm.
competitive. No, they are both very competitive. Watching the women
Hmm.
play is awesome. It's exciting. It's rough. With y'all as women, what are the rules? How rough does it get? Tell us more about what it's like to play as a woman in stickball.
Oh, yes, it can definitely be rough. And the women's game are sometimes more aggressive than the men's game. I feel like we do it sometimes more personally because we play for our family, as to where the men play more for pride and showing off their skills because they're stronger and faster. But for us women, we do the same thing as the men. We hit, we tackle, we body slam, we do all that. So it can get pretty rough, especially around the playoff times, because everybody's trying to get to that championship. So if you want to see women go to war, I would say definitely come to Choctaw, Mississippi.
So have you had any major injuries? Because I know it can be a pretty rough game.
Yeah, actually, and it happened during our practice, not when I was competing against
Mm,
another team or when we're competing against another
yeah.
team. The injury happened during practice. And so what it was is that like I kind of fell on my tailbone.
Oof.
So now I got an injury on my lower back and on one of
Oh
the final
no.
injuries.
Oh.
Yeah, so I deal with that a lot. But that was me making a mistake too. So
Mm.
like, you know, I was told by a coach, you know, to always keep your feet on the ground. And so now today, you know, I share that with my kids. I was like, whatever you do, try not to jump in the air or don't jump in the air. I mean, when the adrenaline's going, it's kind of hard to follow all these rules,
Oh, right. Then you have all the
but
sticks in your face and people around you everywhere. Yeah.
right.
Have you ever played lacrosse?
I've never played lacrosse.
I've always wanted to ask a stickball player if they've played lacrosse and how.
I'm pretty sure some has because some of the Choctaws would go to Haskell, the Haskell College. It was in Kansas.
Mhm.
And I think they have lacrosse out there. So I think they tried that, but I've never tried it personally.
Yeah.
And they use one stick. I've never
Oh,
tried that. So I can't compare that to Choctaw stickball. But what I do see in comparison is like they use, you know, helmets and pads, and we don't. We just it's just stickball sticks and us, you know.
exactly. It's like the rugby of football, you know?
Yeah. It's like rugby to me. It's
Oh my
closer to
gosh.
rugby.
Do you know the difference between Mississippi rules and Choctaw rules? Are there any differences in stickball between the two states, or is it all the same?
From what I heard and you know from what they've said is like Oklahoma and Choctaw, they're talking about the tackling. They're saying they have to drop their sticks first.
Hmm.
Where as for us, the rules are is like you can tackle them and everything, but you just can't hit them below the knees or hit them early.
Right.
But if you tackle them, you know, you can still have your sticks in your hands. It's just you can't tackle them in certain ways.
Okay, well,
And
that's interesting. I wouldn't
mhm,
even remember to drop my sticks. It'd be like, what's
right, that's
happening? I need to tackle somebody.
right. So that's what I was like, oh, that was interesting because I was like, we were never told that. All we were
Yeah.
told is, you know, of course you can't pick them up and body slam them. So
Yeah,
so it was like, as long as you don't do that, you're okay.
exactly. I love it. It's such a fun sport to watch, and I'm hoping that people are going to go YouTube it now, because yeah, you can find tons of stuff on YouTube. You can watch the
Hmm.
games, you can
Hmm.
learn more about it, learn more about the stick making and all that. So, are you still playing stickball now that you're in California?
Yes, I go back. I go
Yeah.
back there for at least a couple weeks. This summer was longer because I was there for my nephew. But the year before, not COVID, but before then, like I went back for 2 weeks to at least try to get some practices in because I couldn't do it here in California.
Okay.
We would do it a little bit with just my family, my husband and my kids, but the land here is just not the same as in Mississippi. So of course we have like gopher holes and all that stuff where you could break your ankle. So we had to be very careful. So we couldn't get that full practice in as we do in Mississippi. So definitely before game time, like when it was time for us to play during the fair, I would go back down there for at least a couple weeks.
So fun.
To get my practices in and try to do my best.
Exactly.
But this year we won our championship, so I'm glad. Congratulations to Pearl River women, or Pearl River Ohoyo's Biasha.
All right.
2021 championship for women.
Actually, the director of the documentaries that I talked to just before I talked to you, he was out there recording that and had a great time and was so proud because that's where he's from too. Originally. Yeah. So it was a great opportunity for him to see them win. And he actually, there was one part where he was recording with his camera, and when they won, he was screaming and yelling. And so the camera starts bouncing around and he was like, oh shoot, I'm supposed to be recording this. He was so happy for y'all. It was so
it
cool.
gets that way. Definitely you need to come check it out because I mean you could see it on YouTube and it's just like with any sport, it's like, oh, you know, man, that's harsh or that's bad to hit, or you know, they're rugged out there. But I mean, to actually be out there and to be in the environment, I mean, you'll feel it. You'll feel everything that the players are feeling, the adrenaline and the heartbeat of the drum is just, and then to me, when we hear that, the drum beat and we're out there and we're doing it, I mean, it's like you can actually feel your ancestor.
Wow.
So, well, for me anyways, well, a lot of us, I could say, and there comes that pride and, you know, the proudness just to be there and be in it and to live it and do it. It's like nothing else that I can describe that is Choctaw stickball.
Wow, that's really well put. The pride, the kind of drumming up your ancestors with the drum beats and just, wow, I love that. So tell us again the name of your team.
Yeah, shout out to the Pearl River Ohoyos. We are the 2021 Stickball Champs. Over the years, we've won like 7 championships. So I've been blessed to be able to work with a group of talented women and a talented coach. Also, congrats to my daughter, this is her first year winning championship in the adults division. So congrats to her. I think she's slowly taking over my place in defense, but that's okay because that's what I wanted to do, was pass down my traditions to my kids, which I can proudly say that they have won their championships over the years in the younger division.
Woohoo! Well, we're giving you guys some high fives and hellos to all of y'all, Pearl River Ohoyos. Do you have any advice for anyone who's thinking about trying out stickball?
My advice for a stickball playing, once you're starting to learn and everything like that, is to always protect yourself. Adrenaline's always going. So even though after you throw the ball, as soon as you throw the ball, like always guard yourself because there are late hits when the players have adrenaline going. It's kind of hard for us to just cut off in dead tracks there, you know.
Yeah.
So when someone, I mean, if you're going to throw that ball or you pick up that ball, you know, you need to hurry up and get rid of it unless you're fast. But if you're not, then my suggestions or tips would be to hurry up and throw the ball, or as soon as you throw the ball and get rid of the ball, like always protect yourself because that will help a lot from skipping the injury parts.
Interesting. Yeah. And it sounds like you know that from that experience.
Yeah.
If you get the ball, if you're not planning to be the rock star with the ball, throw it as fast as possible. That's what they used to tell me when I tried to play basketball. Get rid of the ball.
Yes, you definitely need to get rid of the ball if you don't want to be hit. So
that's great advice.
But that will, you're welcome. But if you don't want to be hit or anything, I mean, throw the ball.
Because that's what's happening. It's a force of everybody's forceful and running at it, and they want that ball.
And that will save you a lot of injuries from that. If you just hurry up and throw the ball, or like I said, always protect yourself.
Yes. Okay. Makes sense. Thank you for that advice. And really, honestly, I think a lot of people will relate to that and take that to heart, as so many of us are still in infancy and are learning how to play. So, well, this has been so interesting to hear all of these perspectives, from a stick maker and player to a filmmaker who documents the game of stickball to a super strong woman who does an excellent job representing our Ohoyo, our Choctaw women out there. So
Aw,
thank
thank you.
you. No, we appreciate you and helping us,
Far from what I think of myself, but thank you.
No, geez. I mean, if you and I played together, you'd understand why I think you're so good at it. But
You'll learn.
yes, I need more practice. And it's too bad you and I don't live closer together, because we play some,
Yeah.
practice together. So, Chalena, are there any Native causes that you would like to promote today?
There's a lot, but for us Choctaws personally, not a cause, but I was just gonna say, for anyone else that wants to see the stickball game, the biggest tournament is held in Choctaw, Mississippi. It's held through our Choctaw Indian Fair. So you can come on out to the Choctaw Indian Fair. It's usually the second week of July. Just come out there and support us. And then in the long run, and when you see our games, then it's definitely going to be very different. And it's going to be a new perspective on our stickball game. In the meantime, and you'll get to see our people there.
We've got a direct invitation from Chalena to come out and hang out. And I definitely want to try to do it this July in 2022. So if anyone's going out there, reach out to me on my Native ChocTalk Facebook page, and we can all check out ChoctawIndianFair.com. So I'll be sure to post that information too, along with some pictures from Chalena and her family on my Native ChocTalk Facebook page. And so, listeners, we're excited that you got to hear this with us. Thanks for hanging in there with us and getting to hear all these different perspectives. And to you, Chalena, yakoki, my friend.
Oh, you're very welcome. Thank you, Rachel.
Take care.
The Choctaw Nation has always provided a foundation upon which a future can be built. From our home in southeast Oklahoma to a bingo hall that grew to be one of the largest casinos in the world, today's summer school programs lay the groundwork for a love of learning. Small business programs support local economies. And with over 10,000 jobs created, Choctaw offers financial stability to tribal members and our neighbors. Together we build success, because together we're more.
Thanks for listening to Native Chalk Talk. Be sure to join our community on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and LinkedIn. Simply search for Native Chalk Talk. That's Native, ChocTalk. And check us out at nativechalktalk.com. Stay tuned for the next episode. You're going to love it. Yakoki. Thank you, my friends.